Good morning, everyone. At this moment, we are going to continue our discussion on the quantitative research that deals on our topic on the second lesson talks about characteristics of the quantitative research and steps in conducting a research. With this regards, we have heard the objectives. At the end of this lesson, the students are expected to first identify the characteristics of a quantitative research, and the second one is to explain the 7 steps in conducting a research. We are going to discuss also the characteristics here of the research. Characteristics of research we have it's empirical. Empirical because the research is based on a direct experience or observation by the researcher. The collection of data relies on a practical experience. This means that research is learning by doing. A person who has no experience in conducting a research means that he is not yet expert in the research process. Researcher's expertise in the research process can be manifested through his research outputs being utilized by his workplace and other agencies or through his online publications. Just like what I have showed you earlier this morning on the publication of our paper in our thesis. Familiarizing the research process can only be done if there is an actual conduct of research. Learned research concepts and principles can be easily forgotten if not applied in actual conduct of research. We have another one which is logical. Logical research is based on logical reasoning and involves both inductive and deductive methods of data analysis. It is also based on valid procedures and principles. Scientific investigation is done in an orderly manner so that the researcher has a confidence in the results. A researcher has the ability to generalize idea from a specific investigation of a particular phenomenon. Next here is cyclical. One of the characteristics of the research is the research being cyclical. Research undergoes a cyclical process. It starts with a problem and ends with a problem. Hence, research is repeated. A researcher conducts a study to answer his doubts about a certain topic. If a person is always curious about the existence of a particular phenomenon, then he can potentially generate a research problem out of that curiosity. Since he is interested to why, what, and how a phenomenon, he already starts with the processes of inquiries and investigations. He proceeds with the collection of data relevant to that phenomenon. If he already has enough information about the phenomenon, he begins analyzing and interpreting the data gathered. After giving meanings to that phenomenon, he makes conclusions. Then, he proceeds with recommendations for another problem which is potential for further investigation by other future researchers is found. Research does not simply stop at finding the solution of one problem. A researcher recommends a problem that needs to be investigated by another researcher. All researchers end their research process with a recommendation. As long as there is a recommendation in the part of the research, then there is a potential problem that needs to be investigated by other researchers. Thus, research is cyclical. Another characteristic is research being analytical. Research utilizes proven analytical procedures in gathering data, whether historical, descriptive, and experimental, or any alternative research methods. A researcher has the ability to use facts or evidences already available, and he is able to analyze this data to make a critical evaluation of the research output, has the ability to establish why it is that way or how it came to be. Analytical skills in research are very important since they allow the researcher to find solutions to common problems and make decisions about what actions to take next. Understanding problems and analyzing the situation for a viable solution is key skill in conducting a research. If research findings are comprehensively analyzed based from valid reasoning and factual evidences, they are said to be logical. This means that both logical and analytical process involves the inductive and deductive approaches in data analysis and interpretation. If a research finding is analyzed in a wrong way, it definitely arrives at invalid conclusion. Okay, and we have heard the replicable. The research design and procedures are replicated to enable the researcher to arrive at a valid and conclusive results. The more replicated the researchers are, the more valid and conclusive the results would be. Research can be replicated anytime in a different setting, but its findings are never duplicated. So take note for that. Replicability is one of the beauties of quantitative research. For instance, a researcher conducted a study about the relationship between emotional intelligence and leadership competence of school administrators. His finding revealed that there is a strong relationship between the two involved variables, emotional intelligence and leadership competence. Another researcher can conduct a research using the same research objective but uses a different setting. He will definitely arrive at different settings compared with the former researcher. One research problem has two different findings if it is conducted in two different settings. Research is cyclical means that the research is replicable. In layman's term, the two characteristics cyclical and replicable are closely related to each other, and they significantly signify that research is repeated. We have heard the other characteristic of research is being critical. Research exhibits a careful and precise judgment. A researcher must be critical in treating his hypothesis. Most quantitative research always starts with a hypothesis. Hypothesis is the tentative solution to a certain problem, or it is known as the intellectual guess for hypothesis. Statistical analysis is very critical, particularly in accepting or rejecting the null hypothesis. Testing a hypothesis is very crucial. A researcher's decision is definitely affected if he accepts the null hypothesis. In fact, he has to reject it. So the researcher needs to be critical when it comes to decision making on the acceptance or the rejection of its hypothesis of the study. Now let's proceed for the characteristics of the quantitative research. So we do have four characteristics of the quantitative research. First, the data are gathered using structured research instruments, where the researcher can use a survey questionnaire anchored from different studies. Next, here is the results are based on larger sample sizes that are randomly chosen as representatives of the population. The researcher may consult a statistician as to who or how many respondents he can accommodate on a certain populations when conducting the study. The research can usually be replicated or repeated given its high reliability. Again, when we see replicated or replicated again is one of the characteristics of a research. It can be done, but on a different setting, given its high reliability. So before the actual conduct of the survey questionnaire, the researcher must have a dry run for his study for the reliability test. Once the reliability is tested and the researcher have consulted the statistician, then the researcher can conduct the survey questionnaire right away. Next here, the researcher has a clearly defined research question to which objectives are sought. So the researcher must be very clear when it comes to their statement of the problem, because that is their goal, wherein they are trying to look for solutions to a certain topic. In the statement of the problem, that's the questions that they are going to seek to their respondents. We have also here, all aspects of the study are carefully designed before data are collected. So, as one of the characteristics of the research, quantitative research, the researcher must have a careful plan or must have a critical decision as to what research design to be utilized during the conduct of the study. Another here is the data are in the form of numbers and statistics. Of course, in quantitative research, the students are going to present their data in a form of tables, figures, using the statistical tools. Data are presented through tables, graphs, figures, or other non-textual forms and followed by textual analysis and interpretation. So just like what I have said, in quantitative research, the researcher has to use the statistical tools in presenting their gathered data. Project can be used to generalize concepts, more widely predict future results, or investigate causal relationships. Another thing is that the researcher uses tools such as questionnaire or computer software to collect numerical data. During the conduct of our study, it was pandemic time, so the survey questionnaire that we are using is done online. So we are trying to utilize the Google form for that, so we can collect the data coming from our respondents on other places. In quantitative, a survey questionnaire is done or a checklist, while for the qualitative, the gathering of data is done on a focus group interview or from interviewing the participants of the study. While in quantitative, survey questionnaire is given to their respondents. findings are reusable. So the findings can be reused for recommendations, and maybe that's the start, and not maybe, that's a start of having another research topic. So remember that one characteristics of a research is it is cyclical. So it starts with a problem and it ends up with a problem. So the findings can be used for future studies. Let's proceed on the steps in conducting the research. Research is a systematic way of getting answers to our questions. So we have to follow certain steps in conducting our research. Steps in conducting a research. We have to remember that research is an organized and systematic method of finding answers to questions. It is organized because there is a planned structure used to reach reliable results. It is systematic because it undergoes a process broken up into clear steps that led to a valid conclusions. The following are the 7 steps of the research process. The first one is on working a title, or that's defining and developing a problem topic. Research does not start from a title. It starts from a research problem. How can a researcher generate a research problem? He looks for a particular phenomenon where he is doubtful or curious about. Doubt brings curiosity. Curiosity leads to inquiry. Inquiry leads to investigation, and that investigation leads to research. If a researcher has already found a topic in which he is curious about, then he now begins scanning all available materials for both online and printed sources to look at related information to the topic. The next steps here is finding background information about choosing problem or topic. And that's it. Review of the related literature. After having a research problem, a researcher now starts the rigid readings to collect a problem information to the chosen problem. He has a notepad where he writes all the relevant information about the research topic. He writes the research title, the author, publisher, year of publication, volume number, issue number, pages, and Uniform Resource Locator (URL) or Digital Object Identifier (that's DOI) for online sources. URL specifies the location of digital information on the internet and can be found in the address bar of the internet browser. DOI is a string numbers, letters, and symbols used to permanently identify an article or document and link it on the web. It will help the readers easily locate a document for citation purposes using the APA format or the American Psychological Association. RRL, a review of related literature, is very useful in writing the background of the study, since every paragraph of the section must contain at least one citation to make it more credible. Writing the background of the study follows the deductive method. It starts from the general idea going to the specific details of the research topic. Significance of the study can be included in the background of the study. The RRL is based from the research variables, which are summarized in conceptual framework. Review of related literature is also anchored on the objectives of the study. A researcher does not go beyond his research objectives in collecting RRL. Remember that. You have to collect only the review of related literature that is related to your topic. And you have to do a matrix for that. RRL plays a vital role in the data analysis and interpretation to support or to oppose the current findings of the research. A researcher makes sure that every research objective he has, there is a corresponding RRL, which he can use to support his findings in that particular research objective during the data analysis and interpretation. Next here is the methodology, planning a research design and a sample. So after getting the title or developing a title, you choose or find a review of related literature, then let's have the methodology. This is the step 3. After the collection of the RRL, a researcher starts planning his research design and sampling technique. This research section involves statistics already. Research design is the blueprint of the research process. It is based from the major objectives of the study. In other words, the major research objective of the study determines that what particular research design will be applicable. Statistical tools can be determined using the specific objectives. If a research objective hardly determines its statistical tool, it needs to be revised and it should undergo the revision of the research experts, particularly the statistician. Methodology refers to the systematic procedure or technique used to identify, select, process, and analyze information about a topic. It allows the readers to critically evaluate the study's overall validity and reliability, as well as the research parameters used in the study. Determining the sample is also part of methodology. Samples should be systematically done using mathematical formula. Quantitative research has a large population. Thus, sampling technique is very necessary. Construction of the research instrument is part of methodology, together with the testing of its validity and reliability. Testing the validity means that research experts are invited to check the overall content of the research instrument if it will answer what the study intends to answer. Valid research instrument is instrument that can generate the solution of the research problem. Research problem is also known as research objective or research question or statement of the problem. Testing the reliability means that initial respondents of the study will be invited to answer the research instrument to check the accuracy or closeness of the responses of the respondents. Checking the validity and reliability of the research instrument applies statistics. So in methodology part, here we can find the respondents, the the research environment, the environment of the research wherein you apply the research study. It also discusses what specific statistical tools to be used and also in the data gathering procedure, ethics on gathering data. We also have this step 4. So after all the plans, the research process are laid down in methodology, data gathering follows. Gathering necessary data using specialized tools and instruments. However, this activity cannot be pursued if there is no research instrument already validated by the research experts. So in short, you have to validate first your research instrument. Research instrument is a measurement tool designed to obtain data on a topic of interest from the research subjects. Interview or focus group discussion, participatory rapid appraisal, and tape or video recorder are some tools in using or gathering data in qualitative research. But in quantitative, we have the checklist, survey questionnaires, and multiple choice paper pencil tests are the research instruments used for data collection in quantitative research. Then research ethics should be observed all the time, particularly the informed consent, wherein you are going to inform the participants of the study or the respondents of the study on how to use their answer or how to get the idea from them. You are going to ask permission first. You have to inform first the respondent what is the purpose on the conduct of the study. Human rights protection, the anonymity and privacy during the data gathering activities. Okay, it is already discussed in your grade 11 on the ethics of conducting research that we have to consider the informed consent. Inform first the respondents on the purpose of your study, and we are going to take responsibility on the answers of the respondents. We are going to protect that one. We don't need to spread all their answers, so we have to protect the gathered data, respecting the privacy and anonymity of our respondents. We have heard the steps 5, in which the step 5 is presenting, analyzing, and interpreting data. After all the needed data are collected, presentation of the quantitative data through the tables, graphs, or figures follow. Of course, this is a quantitative, so it must be presented in tables, graphs, or figures. Presentation of data is based from the order of the research objectives. In quantitative research, data analysis is usually done in deductive approach. In deductive approach means that it is discussed first because tackling the indicators receiving the lowest and highest means. After the detailed discussion of the overall mean, the lowest and the highest means, the review of related literature is used to support or contradict current research findings. Then implications of the results will be given. For the step 6, we have formulating new insights for qualitative research or conclusions for a quantitative research. After all the data are presented, analyzed, and interpreted, conclusions are formulated based from the summary of the findings. Summary of the findings is based from the order of the research questions, in which it is done on the presenting, analyzing, and interpreting data. Conclusions are applicable only in quantitative research. Quantitative research is conducted to validate already constructed theory. Major conclusions is based on from the major objective or hypothesis of the research. Thus, conclusion is needed. Insights gained are applied in qualitative research. Qualitative research is conducted to generate new theory and is oftentimes original in nature. Thus, new insights gained are appropriate in qualitative research. So that's a different thing when it comes to formulating the conclusions in qualitative and a quantitative research. The last steps is that, of course, it's defining a new problem because your research is cyclical. It starts with a problem and it ends up with a problem. After drawing conclusions or laying down the new insights gained, recommendation of the current researcher should be formulated based from the conclusions or insights gained. From this recommendation, new problem is found. Thus, another research starts defining his research problem based from the findings, conclusions, and recommendations of the previous research. New researcher might replicate the previous research using other setting or other population. Thus, research is repeated and it is cyclical. Okay, and now that's the 7 steps of the research process. So let's proceed to your task. And this is your task number 2. We are going to identify what characteristic of a quantitative research is described by the statement. And you are going to write your answer that one in your activity notebook. After taking the task number 2, then you are going to proceed for the task number 3, in which you are reminded to answer all questions in an essay paragraph forms. That's the general rule or general reminder. Please read that one. And we have your task number 3. You have to answer in paragraph number 4, paragraph form in practice on writing your research. So we have heard the questions. Please refer to this presentation. Okay, and that ends on the characteristics of the research as a whole, characteristics of the quantitative research, and the steps in conducting research. I guess that would be all, and thank you everyone for listening. Have a good day. Bye.